I'm worried it's going to be too easy for you and Matt. You and Matt are Bret experts, but I guess we'll find out.
Well, I scored 0 on the last quiz, Dan. So
Okay, I can't wait to hear it.
Okay, so Matt, on this special end of year episode, we have another guest, Dan Gilbert, of initially Weinstein fame, but it's fair to say he's become broader than that. Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, none escape the eye of Dan. He's bad stats on Twitter. Is he still on Twitter? Yeah, I think he is, but he's probably on Blue Sky as well. And we welcome Dan.
Thank you. I think I was on this podcast 4 years ago, so I'm happy to make my once every 4 year Decoding the Gurus appearance to talk about the Weinsteins once again.
You've been on since then, haven't you?
Not that I know of, but maybe.
We talk about Dan a lot.
Yeah, it's probably because we steal your clips.
That's right.
It feels
My
like
clips have made appearances.
Yeah, it feels like you're always here with us in a way.
In
Dan,
spirit, yes.
Yeah.
So as the unofficial Bret Weinstein correspondent for Decoding the Gurus, I thought I would check in on you two and just make sure that you're keeping up with your Bret lore.
This is important because Matt's just had his dignity and self-worth damaged by losing badly in another guru quiz. So this is his chance to restore it, Dan.
This is your chance for redemption.
Yeah, Matt is very good with remembering the details of like specific things around gurus. So this is great. Yeah.
Great. Well, there are 7 questions in this quiz, so I'm expecting a score of 7 out of 7. Anything less, I will consider to be a disappointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we get started?
Yeah, me versus you, Matt. That's the way this stands
All
out.
right.
Okay, me versus you. We're not a team.
We're not a team. Not a team. All right. Go for it, Dan.
It's Bret Weinstein Trivia. Trivia about Wayne. Trivia about Stein.
That's a smidgen of moo and a bit of oink, or
All right. So question 1. Which of these things does Bret Weinstein think is the primary cause of the disease known as polio? A, wokeism. B, the polio virus. C, pesticides. Or D, nutrient deficiencies.
D. That's my guess. It's a guess, though, Matt.
Yeah, I'm tossing up between nutrient deficiencies and pesticides. So to just make things interesting, I'll go for pesticides.
It obviously cannot be B. It cannot be B.
That's the only one you know for sure that it can't be.
Yeah.
All right. So final answer, Chris, D. Matt.
I kind of think it's nutrient deficiencies, but
That's fine. That's fine. Stick with it. Don't worry.
all
there'll be
right.
a chance
I'll
to
stick with
differentiate.
nutrient deficiencies. All right.
Okay, you are both wrong. The answer is C, pesticides.
God damn it!
So that'll be a 0 in the first row.
nonetheless, what you have is something like an epidemic of polio that's not really an epidemic of polio. You have an epidemic of gypsy moths that are being sprayed for with these toxic pesticides.
I should get half a point though, because I was originally
Because you were in the lens.
Yeah.
Maybe you should give him a half point, Dan, 'cause I think this.
I controlled a couple of points out of Helen as well. I'm just continuing the anyway. Go on.
There will be no sympathy points here. We don't do grade inflation. This is not a woke university. Question 2. Which of these things does Bret Weinstein think is the primary cause of excess deaths during the Spanish flu pandemic? So during the Spanish flu pandemic, A, was it Spanish flu? B, overreported deaths? C, proto-SARS-CoV-2? Or D, aspirin?
Going for B.
B, overreported deaths from Matt.
D, then I'll say.
Chris is suspiciously confident that it's D, aspirin. All right, the answer is D, aspirin.
Really?
Brett thinks that they're basically the Spanish flu was a non-issue. The only reason people died during the Spanish flu was because they were overprescribing aspirin, and that's what was killing people.
My God. He's always stupider than you expect.
There was a enthusiasm for prescribing aspirin for people who came in with flu symptoms, and they were prescribed aspirin in doses that are now known to be deadly.
Yeah, it's like I heard that question on Patreon or something. I just had this like.
Chris may have gotten a preview of
Anyway.
that question. We might have to strike this question from the record.
Yep, strike it. I agree.
Question 3. So in order to help make sense of this complicated world, Bret Weinstein likes to invent helpful concepts. So which of these is not a Bret Weinstein coinage? So 3 of these are Bret Weinstein coinages. One of them is not.
One is fake. One is down.
You want to find the fake one. A, the Cartesian crisis. B, the psyop cyclops. C, the coalition slicer dicer. And D, the time-traveling money printer.
I know the answer, but I don't want to give Matt a hint, so I'll let him
All
go
right.
first.
Well, I think it's either B or D. And I'm going to go for B. Just read me B again, just to check that I'm...
B is the psyop cyclops.
Yeah, I'm going to go for B. Not B.
It is B.
All right,
Is it-
B is correct. A point for Chris and Matt. My psyop cyclops. I can't imitate Bret. He's too unique. My psyop cyclops was too obvious.
Yeah, that
But
sounds like
it's-
something you'd invent.
But
that
no,
didn't
it's
have
also
Bret's.
that the other ones are quite memorable.
You know, I coined this term, the Cartesian crisis.
Like the
coalition
slicer.
slicer dicer in particular, that stands out for
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
There's something that I would call the coalition slicer dicer.
What I call it the time traveling money printer.
So question 4. Bret Weinstein is a leading evolutionary theorist. Which of these is not one of Bret Weinstein's novel evolutionary hypotheses?
Oh.
So A, fashion trends originate as an adaptive response to predators. By frequently changing the patterns on their clothing, ancient humans could confuse predators and increase the likelihood of survival. That's A.
I mean, whether you thought of that or Bret did, I love it. I love it.
I had
So-
this off. Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
B, China's one-child policy is the result of a genetic adaptation in humans that causes them to pass government policies which create a gender imbalance in favor of males when they sense war is coming.
That's
That's
totally a
B.
Bret thing. Yeah, go on.
C,
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be helping Chris. I shouldn't be sharing my
That's right.
thoughts. You don't need my help. That's what you think, hey, Chris? All right, go on.
An evolutionary analysis reveals that although perhaps Hitler was evil, the Holocaust was rational from a genetic perspective. And D, men, when hanged, ejaculate. This is an adaptation which confers a reproductive advantage because of the slight chance that the semen will end up in a vagina.
Yes. Okay. Well, I know my pick. Would you like to go first, Chris? I'm locked in.
I'm afraid, Dan, that although it was a good attempt at imitating the master, you don't have the evolutionary lens that Bret does. So A doesn't quite cut it in Weinsteinian evolutionary.
All right, so
theory.
that's an A from Chris and Matt.
Yeah, A from me too.
Yes, you're correct, of course. The one-child policy.
I wrote an essay about the one-child policy, which caused me all those years ago when I wrote this piece to wonder if there wasn't another evolutionary force in play. If evolution did not have a mechanism for producing armies, that when a country was in a position to expand, that producing excess males does pay off at a lineage level. And if what happened is that a male-biased population in China was produced as a weapon, and if that weapon is now being deployed.
The Hitler was rational genetically.
My claim is that if it is true that things like xenophobia, genocide, suicide are products of adaptive evolution, let's say that the impulse to genocide is something that lurks inside human beings, awaiting certain indicators that it is the moment for that program to be triggered.
And the men, when hanged, ejaculating in case it might end up in a vagina, I feel like are two iconic of, Bret theories.
You know, the apparent tendency of people being hung to orgasm, right? What is that? That is likely to be the body taking one last shot. But in order for a pattern to occur where some entity releases sexual propagules on death, in order for that to evolve, it has to have worked enough times for that pattern to have accumulated. And so if autoerotic asphyxiation is the result of people tapping into that thing and traversing a landscape near death in order to increase sexual pleasure, what that suggests is that landscape near death has actually had a certain amount of reproduction happen in it that has resulted in this circuitry being present.
My mission in life is to get everyone to know that these are Bret theories. So this just means it's working.
Well, I don't want to step on another question, but I thought you were going to reference the renting a hall to explain gay people.
Explain the origin. The problem is he never actually got around to renting the hall. So I don't know what his evolutionary theory of homosexuality is. Otherwise, I would have included it. And it's been how many years since he's been promising? He's only given like the tiniest little hints. So I'm dying to hear it. I have to hear it.
We can only imagine. We can only dream. But yeah, when that hall is rented, we'll all be there.
Question 5.
Mm-hmm.
So Bret Weinstein recognizes that we live in an increasingly treacherous world.
Yes.
Which of these concerns has Bret not mentioned? So A, residual radiation from Fukushima has traversed the Pacific and is interfering with his camera equipment.
Mm-hmm.
B, Bret will need to cook his steaks well done to denature the mRNA proteins found in the meat of cows vaccinated with mRNA vaccines. C, Bret's enemies are trying to intimidate him into silence by hacking into his phone and causing it to display threatening words like suicide. And D, since the recent Aurora Borealis, increased solar activity may be interfering with the GPS device on his bicycle, causing him to get lost.
So I think I know the answer, but I demand that you go first, Matt, because I feel you don't.
Don't rule me out. I think I'm going for B. Read me B again, just to check.
Bret will need to cook his steaks well done to denature the mRNA proteins found in the meat of cows vaccinated with mRNA vaccines.
See, that's plausibly Bret, but I'm going to go for B anyway. Yeah.
All right, Matt goes with B. Chris?
D. Obviously
D.
D. Obviously
Okay,
D.
that's right. Chris is right. So that's a point for Chris.
Obviously D. Come on.
Yeah,
don't
Bret.
belittle my attempts, Chris.
I'm not sure exactly what happened on my phone, but somehow the next screen that showed up was a browser window. And in the browser window was a DuckDuckGo search, as far as I know, already completed on the word suicide. If it wasn't a technical glitch, maybe it was just a message designed to scare. If it wasn't that, if it was a warning, I don't scare easily, and we can't afford to have a world that's governed by people who threaten as a mechanism to get what they want.
Bret was very concerned because, they read an article about how they might be developing mRNA vaccines for livestock. And then he was really angry about this because they could still sell that meat as organic, which is the meat that he buys. And so now he was saying, now I'm going to have to start cooking my steaks well done to deal with the harms from the mRNA that's going to be in the meat of the cows that are vaccinated with the vaccine.
If I was starving and you said, here's a steak, that animal was vaccinated with mRNA coated in lipid nanoparticles, something that we now call a vaccine. My answer is, yep, I'd like it well done. Right? Why? Because you're going to at least potentially break apart some of the stuff that's dangerous to me with heat. Is it going to make a steak I really want to eat? No, but if I'm starving, I'd much rather eat it after you've cooked the hell out of that thing.
I did appreciate, Dan, that you folded in Bret's concern with like solar flares and radiation. That's
right.
Had me like on the hook initially. I was like, oh yeah, he is concerned about that, but then when
he's concerned about that ending the world, but he's not.
Yes,
it hasn't messed with his GPS.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's what.
Yeah.
Well, that's what threw me. So that was a good distractor. Well done.
I like that.
Radiation liberated by the fires, radiation that might have been lodged in those forests through nuclear meltdowns in Fukushima. The fallout did fall in the Pacific Northwest, got incorporated into the trees. When the trees burned, it got liberated. And maybe those radioactive decay events in the smoke around us were interfering with the cameras. That was the hypothesis on the table, and it was the only thing that seemed to explain it.
Question 6. So Bret Weinstein rose to prominence for his insightful commentary throughout the COVID pandemic. Which of the following was not a Bret Weinstein hypothesis regarding COVID? So A, Omicron variant was developed in a lab by rogue white hat scientists as a natural vaccine to be unleashed upon the world. B, pharmacies are now selling pills labeled as ivermectin, but which actually contain harmful big pharma products like Paxlovid and remdesivir. C, They are giving people antigen tests that yield false negatives in order to trick people into spreading COVID. Or D, the October 7th attacks on Israel may have been orchestrated in order to cause a rift between Bret and his friends in the COVID dissident community and prevent them from becoming too powerful.
Yeah. Well, we know the last one is definitely Bret. No, I'm not.
Unbelievably, that is Bret. More people should know that.
Let's say that you have a group of people, right? You have the COVID dissidents who are realizing that they're all seeing pieces of the puzzle, and then they pool those pieces and they say, oh my God, here's what the larger puzzle looks like. And they are empowered and they hold meetings, and that is a very powerful force. That force is fiercely divided over the interpretation of what took place on October 7th in Israel. Divide and conquer in an information landscape might look very much like an ongoing slicer-dicer operation that simply tears coalitions apart so that they are never capable of making any meaningful change, which is, after all, I think the Goliath's purpose.
For people, I think I know, but this is a good one. This is
This is a good one. Oh shit! I've forgotten my pick.
You want summaries?
I think it's one of the first two. Yeah, quick summaries.
A is Omicron is a white hat vaccine that was intentionally leaked from a lab.
Mm-hmm.
And B is pharmacies are selling pills labeled as ivermectin, but they're actually big pharma drugs.
Yeah, I'm going to pick B is the one that is.
I think B as well. I think B.
All right, you are correct. It is B.
We know our Bret.
So if somebody released Omicron as a white hat exercise in returning planet Earth to normal,
Yeah.
they took a massive gamble on our behalfs, which probably they didn't have a right to do.
Yep.
Right? Because it could evolve into something that is outside of their understanding. I don't know. Maybe it has a kill switch in it.
We know all his conspiracies. This is the problem. But like, so whenever there's a new one, it's like he could say that, but he hasn't said it yet.
He hasn't said it yet. All right, last question. And this one is going to be a slam dunk for you guys.
Okay.
Which of these people has blocked Bret on Twitter?
Oh,
So A, James Lindsay, because Bret was a member of the controlled opposition who opposed COVID vaccines but refused to recognize that they were products of Gnosticism. B, Eric Weinstein, because Bret was going a bit too far off the deep end and it was interfering with Eric's more subtle brand of obfuscation. C, Elon Musk, because Bret spammed him with messages insisting he was shadow banned and asking Musk to do something about it. Or D, Peter Hotez, after Bret issued a series of no less than 13 tweets impelling him to debate RFK Jr.
they all should have blocked them. They all should have blocked them.
They all
But we
should have
know who
blocked
it
him,
is, Matt.
we all know who it was. That's right. Elon Musk.
It's Elon Musk. It's Musky.
Elon Musk, because I guess he was complaining about it for like many weeks in a row on his podcast about how every podcast he went on, he would complain about how Elon Musk blocked him and say, if Elon Musk is watching this podcast, could you let him know? Could you tell him to unblock me?
Elon has me blocked.
My little story where, he blocked me, it's like, look,
Hey, Elon, I cannot understand this. Elon, if you're watching, you have no idea how destructive it is of your platform to block somebody yourself. But please undo it, because if you're really about free speech, this is not helping.
so he then blocked me saying, stop spamming me.
This is why it's so hard to leave Twitter, because it's a cesspool of corruption, but it has those happenings, which are just so funny. I remember it making my day, his continual whinging about being blocked by Musk.
So Dan, you need to summarize though. I hope you were keeping track.
I kept careful
who won?
score. So including the question, which we should strike from the record because Chris is a cheater. The total score is 4 points for Matt out of 7.
Uh-huh.
And for Chris, 6 points out of 7.
So even if does that include striking the?
That includes striking question number 2. So I think that puts Matt in the category of sophist who trusts the science.
Yeah.
And that would put Chris in the category of a member of the Coalition of the Reasonable.
Yeah, thank you.
Stop looking
Yeah.
so smug, Chris.
I'm.
It
that's just
doesn't
my
become
fears,
you.
Matt. That is my fears.